Masechta Eruvin, Toshma, Shiara Shechansa Babika Vikifu Gmalin. You have a caravan that stopped for the night in a valley, and they surrounded themselves with the camels, the ukfis, with the saddles, the avitin, the pillows, the shlifin. These are the bundles of wheat that they were carrying, the kanim, the reeds, and the kolchois, other kinds of vegetables. So what they've done is they've set up walls around them. Therefore, metatel and besocha, so you can carry there if it's Shabbos. Ulavachie ben gamal gamal kiplo gamal. Between each camel, you can't have more than a camel's worth of space. Ubein ukaf le'ukaf kamala ukaf. Between each saddle, you can't have a space more than a saddle. Ubein avid la'avid kimlo avid. So we were having yesterday machlokas, if it's 50-50, what's the din?
Ernie, but between a camel's distance can be more than 10 tefachim. How do you have a place that's bigger than 10 tefachim?
No, 10 amos is the maximum.
I mean 10 amos. I mean that's bigger.
No, that's a camel's not 20 feet long. 10 amos is 20 feet. An amma is 2 feet. So Walter's correct. If you have an opening more than 10 amos, so that ruins any kind of mechitza, but this is not more, it's between a camel and a camel. It's not 20 feet, it's maybe 6 feet. I don't know.
Yeah, but how come a saddle's maybe 2 amos, maybe not 1 amma.
Exactly.
2 amos.
Exactly. So you can have a saddle and then a space of a saddle. So that's you don't have 20 amos. I mean, a Pesach, it means as long as there's greater than 51% closed space versus 49% of the whole, if you add it all up, it's okay. Now, you cannot have a Pesach more than 10 amos wide. That will ruin the whole thing. So that's okay. But what the Gemara used here as a proof was here it's 50-50. And if it's 50-50, and yet it's good, so that's a kasha on the one who said that 50-50 is bad. So the one who said 50-50 is bad, because the space here is a little bit more, where it would be easy to put in another saddle in where it was. So yotze v'nichnas means it's like a little bit more empty space than closed space. That's why otherwise it would be also. There's no raya regarding if it was exactly 50-50. Torshma, Nimtzasat Oimer, comes out, Sholosh Midas b'mechitzas. There are 3 hierarchies when it comes to mechitzos. Kolshu pachos mishlosha, if it's less than 3 tfachim, Sorech shloyeh bein zel zeh shlosha. So you can't have a space more than shlosha between whatever you put there. Because if you have a space more than shlosha, you'll have a problem. A goat, just like we've talked about a wall coming down from up, cannot be more than 3 tfachim from the ground, because otherwise a goat can just go into the enclosure unobstructed. So the same thing side by side. So if you have 3 and then another 3, if you have more than 3, there'll be a problem. That's one hierarchy. Anything from 3 to 4 tfachim, again, the space next to it cannot be more than what the closure is. Otherwise, otherwise, you'll have more open space than closed space. So it's got to be exact. And in fact, if the open space, if you add it all up, is more than the closed space, now if you built this mechitza next to a vineyard, you would not be able to plant wheat right next to the wall itself, even next to forget about the open space, even against the closed wall you can't use because the whole thing is invalidated. if Paritz Merubal Oimed. Then, Kol Shu Arba, if you go from Arba Tfachim ad Eser Amois, again, you can't have, let's say you have a wall of 10 amas. You can have a wall next to it of 10 amas, but no greater. Because otherwise, Shaloye Paritz Ka'omed. Otherwise, again, we'll have more open space than closed. V'maya Paritz Ka'omed. But in this situation, if there was more open space than closed, you could still plant Keneged Oimed Mutter next to the wall on the other side of it. Of course, Keneged HaParetz Osir. V'maya Oimed Merubal HaParetz. If there's 51% standing wall and 49% open, so then you can plant anywhere. Av Keneged HaParetz Mutter. And then, like we said to Walter before, Nifritza B'yoyser Me'eser Osir. If there's any opening more than 10 amas, then it asers, you can't carry inside there. Ayusham kanim adukronim. If you have two sticks, even though they're far apart, even if they're more than 10, and you hang a string from the top of those poles, afilu b'yoyser me'eser mutter, because it creates a tzuras HaPesach. By tzuras HaPesach, it's permitted to be more than 10. That's by kloyim. That's not necessarily by carrying. But that's by creating a separation between this field and that field where you could plant wheat right up next to the vineyard. Now, we quoted this baraisa for a reason. Kani miyas, we said, Reisha mishloisha bar arba, between 3 and 4 tefachim of Bachelor well, you can't have open space equal to it. Well, Rav Papa said if it's equal, then that work 50-50 would work. So to you have to Rav Papa. So it's a kash on Rav Papa. Amlecha Rav Papa, my melo nichnas fiyotze. Again, here the open space is a little bit more. Then in order to make it easy to move things in and out, it was a little bit bigger. That's why it's usher. But if it was equal, it would be okay. That makes logical sense. What did it say in the price? If the open space was more than the closed space, so we say af keneged ha'oimed osir. So even if you plant next to the wall itself, it would be prohibited. But we're going to be medayek ha ke'oimed im haya paretz ke'oimed mutter. But if it was 50-50, you'd be permitted to plant. Shma mina. That 50-50 works. Leimet evetiyuv to Ravuna bread of Yeshua. So this is now kasha on the bar plukta of Rav Papa. Amar lecha Ravuna ulatamei. What do you mean? Based on your reasoning, I'll give you the same reasoning right back. Ema Seifa. The Seifa said, "Imaya oimid merubal haparetz." If the walled area was greater than the open area, we said, Av keneged haparetz mutter. You could plant wheat even next to the open space. But if it would have been imhaya oimed keparutz, if they were equal usher. So it's a kasha on Rav Papa. Seifa kasha Rav Papa. Reisha kasha Rav Yeshua. So it's a kasha on both of them. Seifa Rav Papa loy kasha. Rav Papa says you can't be medayik. It was written like this in the Brisa for stylistic, literary reasons. I did a ton of Reisha. Since the Reisha used the language of Paritz Merubal Oimed, Tana Seifa Oimed Merubal HaParetz. But not to be medayik the way you're trying to be medayik that, if it was equal, then no, it's just stylistic. And the Gemara gives the same reason for Ravuna. Rachel, Ravuna Breder Vichu also like kasha. Because I didn't bother Mr. Seifa. Because since the Seifa said Oimed Merubal HaParetz, so Rachel parts Merubal Oimed. Okay. Bishma Rav Papa. I understand Rav Papa, Mishamachi lo iriv v'tani luhu. We were given a hierarchical system, under 3, 3 to 4, and then anything above 4. But because Rav Papa wants to show us in each case, it's 50-50 works. And Ravuna Brady Rav Shimon Ravina v'lisnu. But why Ravuna could have made it easier? Koshu pachos mishloisha, ushloisha tzarich shloya ben zel zeh shlosha, and then you know everything. Anything that's 50% is going to be bad. Where you have to go through the whole system here. Gemara answers Mishulam Dami Psula de Rachel Psula de Seifa. The Psula of the Rachel would be different than the Psula of the Seifa. Because the Psula de Rachel, where we said you can't have more than 3 tfachim, was Kadesh Lo Yizdakar Agdiba Vasachas. You don't want a goat to be able to just push itself in. But Psula de Seifa is based on a different svara of Shloye parts Ko'oimed. That you can't have, you shouldn't have even equal 50% space versus 50% of the closed wall. Yeah. Pachos Mishloisha Mani, who was the author of the Brisa? That talked about Pachos Mishloisha Rabbanani. Remember, there's Machloikes Rabban and Rav Shimon Gamliel about Lavud. Rabban hold that Lavud goes up to 3. Rav Shimon Gamliel says Lavud goes up to 4. So Pachos Mishloisha my Rabbanani. I mean Pachos Mishloisha I mean in Lavud. Shlosha Lo I mean in Lavud. So then name a Seifa. Kolshu Shloisha Mishloisha Vardabah. If you go from 3 to 4, well, 4 is relating to Lavud about Rav Shimon Gamliel. A son of Rav Shimon Gamliel, that Pachos Arba Lavud. It's the same invalidation. So how can you have the Reisha Rabban on the Sefer Rav Shimon Gamliel? Amr Abai with the Reisha Rabban on Sefer Nami Rabban. The whole thing is Rabban. Umoid Rabban to call the Mishra Connecto. And they want to argue, they want to say, they want to permit an open space exactly like the closed space. But if it's 4 tfachim choshev, the ilo lo choshev, it has to do with chashivas. But Rava learns differently. It is safer Rav Shimon Gamliel, Reisha Nami Rav Shimon Gamliel. Rava learns it pumfakir, that the whole brisa is all Rav Shimon Gamliel. The chiyam Rav Shimon Gamliel, Amin and Lavud. When does he say that you allow up to 4? So in Rava, we see a new understanding of the Shita of Rav Shimon Gamliel. That when Rav Shimon extends Lava to 4, that's only up and down. Like if you have a sukkah wall that is within 4 tfachim of the ground, excuse me, just the opposite. If you have a wall going up that meets the schach, and it's 4 tfachim away from the schach, according to Shimon Gamliel, it's still okay. Because his lavud going up to 4 works upwards. So according to Rava, Rav Shimon Gamliel agrees with Chachamim downwards. Because there he says a goat can go in under 3 tfachim, if it's 3 tfachim. He agrees with that. So it's a new understanding. Now, the final halach in Shulchan Aruch by mechitzas, if it's 50-50, we paskin like Rav Papa, that it's permitted. It's not like Rav Huna. That's the final halach. Toshma.
If it's 50-50, a goat could certainly go in if there's camels there or something.
No. I'm talking about when you add up in a chanami, the space, if you add up if you have a mechitza, and you add up the closed space and the open space,
Right,
and
so
if
it's
it's exactly
50-50.
50-50, you're allowed to carry them. Rav Huna said you're not allowed to carry if it's 50-50. So we paskin like the Shita that if it's exactly 50-50, it's permitted.
It's a big space, though. Could be a big space.
No, you can't have a space more than 10 amas. But
Yeah.
for example, if you have a house, you have windows, doors, you might have a room that's more open, that's 50-50, but it can't be more than 50-50. You can't have more space than wall, even 51%. That would invalidate that as a Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, but in a sukkah, you need 3 walls. So there's no such thing in a sukkah as 50-50. You don't have a din of a sukkah of 50-50.
Yes, it would work. That means you're allowed
A sukkah would not work on a 50-50 basis.
Remember, a sukkah only needs 2 and a mashahu. 2 and a mashahu. So
it needs a mashu, so it's not a 50-50.
No, but the two don't have to be complete. The
no,
two
they don't
don't
have
have
to be,
to.
by the way, Walter, they don't have to be next to each other. That means if around the sukkah, oh, but by the way, because you need a 2 and a mashu, it's got to be more than 50%.
Exactly. So I'm saying, so it's not a 50-50.
No, but I'm talking about the Dinei Shabbos. By Dinei Shabbos.
I understand, but we learn all this. It comes from, there's a big Zushtel, there's a big
There is a Zushtel,
connection.
but
there's a big
remember,
connection between Lavud and everything else. You know that what you have over here. The dinim from Sukkah you learn from Mechitza, I guess, or Mechitza you learn from Sukkah.
right.
So, but it's strange that here they said it's 50-50.
No, but
they
remember,
should say
Walter,
50 and a mashu.
let me give you an answer. The dinim of how many walls you need for a sukkah is not based on poritz versus oimed. See, the dinim for Shabbos requires you can't have poritz greater than an omud. That has nothing to do with sukkah. Sukkah, we learned that from psukim. Sukkos. Remember, an extra vav, not a vav, a cholam. How many walls you need for a sukkah is learned migzeres hakosu. Some hold you need 3, some hold 2 and a mashu. And they learn it out from psukim. So the requirement of how many walls you need for sukkah is halach l'moshe misinai, a different din, has nothing to do with this concept of poritz and oimed. The concept of whether a reshus hayochid is created, where you can carry there, that relates to poritz. I mean, it's not related to sukkah.
Let me ask you, Lechi and everything else didn't come from Reb Moshe, Halacha Moshe Misinai?
Koreh, Lechi are drabonans. That's not the Halacha Moshe Misinai.
No,
those are rabbinic corrections of how to carry an amavud.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but I think it's a good analysis. It's a very good analysis that, yes, we do learn many of the good asik and good achik, good achis and lavud. The same dinim apply to sukkahs and chanami. And we're going to see that certain dinim, we're going to have later on a sugya that will say a machitza that works for Shabbos doesn't work for sukkah and vice versa. So it doesn't all, we're going to see befeirush that there are different gedorim by the two dinim. Some are alike, but some are different. I mean, so if it's a machitza for Shabbos, it doesn't necessarily make it a machitza for sukkah. We'll have examples of that. Weiter. Toshma, Dfanas alala sheruban psochim v'chaloinois. Let's say you have a room, and most of it are doors and windows. Mutter, as long as you calculate it all up, the physical structures are 51% compared to the empty space. Fragt the Gemara, Sheruban Salkadaita, how can you tell me then Ruban Psachim Chaloinois? Ela Sheriba Ben Psachim Chaloinois Mutter means you put a lot of doors and windows there. Like what do you call those? Like a sunroom, like a greenhouse, where you built certain structures which were like almost all windows or all glass. I have a breakfast room that's like that. But it's not majority.
Yeah, but the glass is still a wall.
And glass is still a wall because remember they're in a frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a chanami. Yeah, but you see, Harold, it says psachim and chaloinos because you could open up those windows. I have them. They're built into door frames. But if you had a window that you could open up, we see that they calculate that as if it's a Pesach.
You have these huge sliding doors today that they make
Right.
go open to a patio. That opens up.
That would
the
be a
whole.
Pesach. That would be considered an opening. Implying ha-keporitz also. Again, we're trying to ask a kasha on Rav Papa that if it was equal, it would be prohibited. Tiyufta Rav Papa, tiyufta. Wow. All of a sudden, whenever you have a final tiyufta, it's usually we knock him out of the box. However, Hilchas Kavosei Rav Papa. The Gemara immediately says, even though I have a tiyufta Rav Papa, tiyufta, it says halach like Rav Papa. So the Gemara goes, tiyufta ve'ilchasa? Yeah, you knocked him out of the box, but the halacha is like that? That doesn't make any sense. Whereas in, yeah, it's a tiyufta, but the halacha is like him. Mishum, the daika maslisin kavose. Because our Mishnah was medaik like Rav Papa. Disnan, lo ye process yiseros ala binyan. The opening cannot be more than the binyan. Ha-ke-binyan mutter. And that's why at the end I told you that the Shulchan Aruch paskins like Rav Papa, that if it's 50-50, now, how often is going to be a case where it's exactly 50-50? That's a pretty rare case. But in that case, it would still be permitted. Mishnah. Makifin shloisha chavolim zelam alam izeh v'zelam alam izeh. So you can create, if you can set up poles, and then you can string rope. You can string 3 sets of rope, one on top of the another. As long as they're within 3 tvachim of each other, and we use lavud, and we see that as a complete wall. So if you have a rope that's at 3 tvachim, and then another rope at 3 tvachim, another rope at 3 tvachim, you have a wall. So if you were in a camp site, out in a meadow, and you wanted to construct a big knesset, you could create walls with rope, and then you could carry out in the boonies. Shir chavolim v'oivyan. How thick does the rope have to be? Yasser al tefach. It has to be at least a tefach or more. Why? Kedei sheyakol asar tefachim. Because if we know you need 3, 3, 3, so that's 9, and because they got to be 3 tefachs of space in between the 3 ropes. So if the thickness of the ropes together are at least a tefach, then you're going to have a wall of at least 10 tefachim. So that works. Makif and bekanim. You can also set up. So that was creating a wall through horizontal structures. But you could take reeds and put them in the ground around you, so you have now vertical poles. As long as they're 3 tefachim close, then you've created a wall and you can carry. And B'shayara Dibur di Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says this is only a leniency if you're in a caravan, where remember you're not using. Normally, a mechitza has to be shesi and erev. Shesi means vertical, erev means horizontal, and for you to have a real partition, you have to create shesi ve'erev. Here, we've described creating a mechitza with either shesi only or erev only. So Rabbi Yehuda holds hekilu she'enon tzrichim ela o shesi or erev. Shesi kagon kinim, erev kagon chavolim. Aval yachid lo hekilu ad she'ebo shesi ve'erev. That's because you're in a caravan with multiple people, so they were mekel. But for individual use, it wouldn't work. No, it works even for individuals. They argue with Rabbi Yehuda. The only reason they talked about a shayara because caravans find themselves all of a sudden in the middle of nowhere on Shabbos, where it's very relevant, this issue. So that's why the Mishnah discussed that issue about a shayara, but because it might happen to them, but not because it only relates to them. The Shulchan Aruch paskins, like the Chachamim, that we can use this kind of making walls even for a yachid. It's not necessarily just for shayara. However, the Mishnah says, "Kol mechitza she'ena shel seshi v'shalev eina mechitza." A mechitza has to have both horizontal and vertical aspects to it. So for example, you have to have a pole, and you have to have, like a fencing this way. I mean, you need both. But no, you only need one or the other. For example, if you just planted vertical ropes, or somehow if you just had long ropes that were not held up by poles, maybe they were tied by trees or whatever, you're using the walls as the ropes, one dimension. Amarav Amnuna Amarav, Hare Amru, Oimed Merubalaports Beshesi, Heavy Oimed. Having physical structure more than the empty space with a vertical pole, that's considered Oimed. Avagav the Ikaprot. So even though there's open space between these poles, and we said Lo Yod Protus Yisrael Labinyan, it's permitted. It's considered like it's oimed. Boy, Ravanuna, Erev Mai, what about horizontal structures? Amra Baya Torshma, Shir Chavolim V'Oivin Yosra Tefach. We said the thickness of the rope has to be a tefach. Shir Kol Asar Tefachim. That the space and the ropes have to be at least 10 tefachim high. V'i Issa, and if it's correct, like we just said, that we view it all as oimed, Lamali Yisrael Tefach, what do we care about the dimension of the rope? Li'eved pachos mishloisha v'chevel mashu. Even if the chevel is mashu, and you're within pachos mishloisha v'chevel mashu, pachos marba v'chevel mashu, and you'd still have, through lavud, you would still have a closure of 10 with open space. The tizbra, does that make sense? Where are you going to put the 4 tefach open space? If you're going to put them on the bottom, we can't have that, because the rope is going to be 4 tefachim from the ground, and you have goats going in there. If you put it on the top, you have so much sky above the top one that it'll be mavatel the space next to it. And let's say you have 3, 4, 3. Then you have a problem of oimed merubal aports from both sides, and we only hold from one side. We hold not like so. So it doesn't work with 4. Going to icy machzeles, you could have brought a mat made out of reeds, the havishiva umashu, that was 7 tvachim and a little bit. The chakak bashloisha, I guess you remove 3 from the mat. Ushavik barba, you leave 4 and a mashu, and you hang it ukme pachos bishloisha. And Ravashi Amar Mechitza Tluya Iboile. The question was a suspended wall, like we had in the case where you're over water and you're allowed to build a 4-walled structure that it doesn't go all the way down to the water, but we sort of imaginary-wise drag that down. It only works by water, it doesn't work by regular. So the concept of Rav, of Havi Omru, Oimed, Merubal Aports B'Shesi, Havi Oimed is not accepted. Although I told you we are allowed to make this rope wall even for a private individual. Then it says Makifin Bakanim. You could surround yourself with reeds as long as they're 10 tfachim high, and they're within 3 tfachim of each other, use lavud. Again, the Gemara says b'shayara in b'yachid lo. The kula is only by a caravan, not by yachid. That when you enclose a rishus hayachid, for a yachid you cannot enclose something greater than 5,000 square amas. That means the walls are given that you could do whatever you want up to 5,000 square amas. Where did he learn this? This not. If you have a leniency type of mechitza, a mechitza that's not shesi ve'eriv, but one of these mechitzas that we're relying on as a leniency. Call mechitza she'enishal shesi ve'eriv ain't a mechitza. It doesn't have the status of a mechitza. Did Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yudi? Echad yachid, echad shayar l'chavolim. A yachid or a shayar can use this rope. Uma ben yachid l'shayar. Then what's the yachid and shayara? Yachid knows no base society. A yachid gets 5,000 square amas. Shnayim knows no base society. Two people also only get 5,000 square amas. Shloisha nasu shayar knows no base sheish. They get 3 times that amount. No difference. Echad yachid ve'echad shayar noislan kol tzorchan. They can walk wherever they want. Lavachli a basis as long up to 5,000 square amas. And if you're in a meadow, says the Shulchan Aruch, yachid u'shnayim ha'osim la'atzon mechitzas chavolim. You're going to create a mechitza for you with rope for Shabbos. Mutar lakif rak. Shetach, you only can enclose 5,000 square amas. Can't do more than that. But for more than 3 people, makifin ad sheyaspik l'chol tzorchan. Then they get 5,000 square amas for each person. So it's 15,000 square amas. Period. Darash Rav Nachman Shel Rabbeinu Shmuel. Yachid noisen lo beis osayim. If you're enclosing with this sort of weakened wall, like a rope wall, not a full wall. If you have a full wall, there's no minimum. We're talking about what are the minimums when you have this weak wall. So a yachid gets 5,000. Shnayim noisel beis osayim. Shlosha nasa shir noisel beis sheish. Then they get, each one gets 5,000 for their own. Freit the Gemara Shavkis Rabban Vadis Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbanan left their sheet that they went to Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. So Hadar Ukim Rav Nachman Amar Alev Darsh. Rav Nachman appointed a meturgaman to Darshan. Dvarim Shamartim Lifnechem Tolosem Biyadi. These words that I brought to teach halacha were not correct. Biram Kachama. This is really why it's correct. Yachid Nosel Beis Osayim. Shnai Nosel Beis Osayim. 1 or 2 gets only 5,000 square amas. Shlosha nasu shayara v'nosam kol tzorchem. They each get their own 5,000 square amas. Freit the Gemara Reish Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda v'Sefer Rabbanon in. We're going to see that it's a split Mishnah, and we'll explain why tomorrow. So tomorrow, Mirz Hashem will finish the first pair.